Good afternoon, everybody in the Western Hemisphere, and good evening to those of us in the APAC region, as well as our, actually, it might be good morning in APAC right now, but my European and UK friends, good evening, or whatever Europeans say instead of good night. Welcome to the CoinGeek Weekly Livestream. I'm your host, Kurt Wooker Jr., I have recently asked John Southhurst who his barber is, and look how delightful I look now. So thank you, John, for the tips there. This episode today is brought to you, first of all, by Satoshi and freebsv.com, who donated yet again some paper wallets, which is delightful for everybody. I think we've given away over $100 on every episode. So please, everybody, get your Simply Cash wallets ready. I'm going to throw the QR codes up, and there are some snipers out there that probably are getting, it's probably the same couple of people who figured out the right way to do it are getting the money every time. But please beat them to the FreeBSV, brought to you by freebsv.com. So thank you, Satoshi, for all of that. I'm also going to give a shout out to Tonic Pow, whose QR codes we will be showing at different times during the show. We're going to be giving away some really cool stuff. Also, I want to point out CoinGeek today. This is breaking news, not the most exciting thing in the universe, unless you like money. But what they have done is they've raised their pay-per-click price for sharing any page from CoinGeek.com using the Tonic Pow short link service. You will get 8 cents per click. So that it is an 800% raise in the amount of money that CoinGeek is willing to pay you to share CoinGeek.com information. So every time I share an article, or your favorite authors across the CoinGeek universe, when they share their articles, if you use Tonic Pow and you have a Tonic Pow account and you qualify for their blah, 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 you get 8 cents per click for every single click that you get on every single new page. So get out there, make that money, and share CoinGeek articles. At time of air, the BSV price is $235. BTC, the Blockstream core coin, has just barely wicked and touched $50,000. Let's come back down a little bit. Is this the top of the market? Are we going to enter another 2 years of bear? Maybe. We don't know. But in more important news, Shua coin now trading at $118. That is a 500x raise from when it launched in the ICO yesterday via Twitch, selling for 25 cents a coin. The first real implementation of the Fabric token protocol. Our what is he? Our insider guy, Joshua Hensley, CoinGeek contributor Josh Hensley, one of the best authors in the space, also makes a ton of really great video content, decided, hey, I'm going to figure out if I can use the Fabric protocol to make the Shua coin, just to see what's possible, see if I can make it happen. And, well, he did it. He's going to be putting together some tutorials. There's some stuff coming out that basically explains how you can create a token for just a little bit of dust, frankly, and raise a few $100,000 in less than 12 hours if you're Josh Hensley. So Josh offered these coins at 25 cents a piece on Twitch, and I bought 10% of the total supply because I wanted to support Josh. And then instantly the price shot up aggressively, and I'm now selling mine. If anybody wants one Shua coin, they cannot be broken down into smaller units, but I will be selling them for $218,000 a piece because that's just the price that I set. And you can bid me down, but good luck to you. We're already getting some good questions in the comment box here, but I want everybody to know we don't have a guest today. There is no guest. I'm going to be answering your questions. So you are the guest. If you're watching the CoinGeek live stream, I'm going to be answering these questions as they come. The first one from Carbon Craft. Question to Kurt. What is Shua? How do I buy it? How does it work? First thing, you need to get a Twitch account. You need to go to twitch.com or twitch.app or any of the other places that Twitch owns a domain. Contact Joshua Hensley directly. There is currently an OTC desk occurring for all Shua coins. If you want one from me, you can pay me via Twitch Pay. Again, $218,000 per coin, and they are indivisible. So for all you whales out there, Shua coin, first of its kind. It is the first publicly distributed token across BSV. We've already blown Ethereum out of the water for how much money can be made, printed out of absolutely nothing using a very simple app across the Metanet. It's not even the Metanet. It's just a token protocol. But we've already beaten Ethereum at their own game. Go raise $1 billion. It only takes 10 minutes of your time. So another couple of things here. Peter McCormick today. This was day one of the trial. But this is like pre-hearing stuff. It was a rules meeting. Well, Peter McCormick brought a giant stack of paper. I think he would call it a crazy amount of evidence that he is not the bad guy for calling Craig Wright a fraud because, well, everybody calls Craig Wright a fraud. And he used, what I understand is that he used articles from Cointelegraph, CoinDesk, and some other places to say, here's the proof. Everyone says he's a fraud. And we'll see how that plays out for Mr. McCormick. Frankly, I'm not bullish on his proposition here. So, also, a little bit of news here, or a little bit of information. This episode has a producer, the lovely Alex Moon, who's been adamant that I do not add him to the stream, but I want him to have anxiety during the entire hour that I may bring him onto the stream against his will. He just covered up his camera, but I just want everybody to know that that Alex exists. He's doing a really good job, and I may burst him onto the stream at any moment. So Alex is shaking his head at me. Alex, more questions. Let's start in with the questions. We'll cover some topics after I do a couple of questions here. From Brian Arundel, where are all the enterprises promised by Cal? Is it still too soon? Grassroots is driving most transactions on chain, not things promoted, founded by Bitcoin Association, N-Chain, Twetch, etc. This is a fantastic question. And this is actually something that I have brought up a couple of times over the last few months, but I really laid it on thick on Twitter yesterday and said, look, there's $1 trillion in businesses being left on the table as we speak. And right now, there's just not enough business dev people. There's not enough people in sales, marketing, deployment, onboarding that can handle this work. But what we need are people that are capable of showing up in a boardroom and walking out with a $250 million contract. So for anybody, if you are that person, or if you know that person, or if you have anybody with experience in SaaS sales, general software sales, that kind of thing, big B2B sales experience, we need these people. These people need to be doing this work. And it's really unfortunate, in my opinion, that people look at someone like Calvin and say that he's not doing enough. Now, I know this is a CoinGeek show, and Calvin's Mr. Head of CoinGeek guy, but Calvin has done more than probably any other single individual in the space. He puts on the big conferences. He's funded a lot of the business startups. He's a consultant personally to a lot of the big businesses in the space, but those big businesses also need to be doing their own work too. So he can only push people so far. If people are not willing to put pen to paper, write the contract, walk away with the money, what else can you do? So my challenge to you, Brian, I mean, you may not be Mr. BizDev guy, and believe me, there's no no criticism there, but we need more people to carry that water. So by all means, people out there, feel free to contact me directly. I'd be happy to connect you with the right people. There are devs that need salesmen, and there are businesses that need the stuff that our devs are doing. So please, let's make it happen. Who is Satoshi and why BSV? It's an interesting question. So I have never seen Satoshi in real life. I don't know his real name. I have heard his voice. So if you're willing to buy one Shua coin, maybe I could let you know what region of the world that Satoshi is from. It's only $218,000. So if I'm just kidding. Satoshi's just a dude. Does some cool stuff. Raises awareness across the internet about BSV. What he likes about BSV is that he's an old school Bitcoiner, much like myself. And he looks at it and says, oh, that's what I signed up for. And he's tired of all the marketing and stuff that's being done for free by people that are really just pumping a big investment. So it's refreshing to see somebody say, hey, you know what? I've made a lot of money in the space. I'm going to give back, and I'm going to use it as a way to show the world what's going on. Next question. Eric Zostek, I know this guy in real life. Thanks for watching. Hope all is well. Want you to know your thoughts on XRP, short-term and long-term. Oh, my goodness. So XRP, in my opinion, is probably top 3 most successful scams in the entire crypto sphere. Very few people know that the founder of XRP is a guy named Jeb McCaleb. He is also the founder of an exchange called Mt. Gox. And he is the founder of a protocol that you may know as Stellar Lumens. Now, Jed's not known for making a whole lot of successful things, but XRP has probably made more money for no good reason than anything else in the space, frankly. XRP is a token that was designed to run across a very old iteration of Ripple's network. What Ripple is basically Bitcoin minus the proof of work. And if you take the proof of work away from Bitcoin, well, allegedly you have faster transactions and some of these other things, but you also have very centralized consensus. Now, what they realize is that they could be selling settlement services to compete with people like Western Union and MoneyGram, doing global settlement with their liquidity pools on different continents and different nations. They're going to speed up that process for banks and settlement layer stuff. Well, they realized after a while that everyone says, hey, that's a really great idea. This RippleNet, XRapid, all these different things that they do over at Ripple Corporation, but nobody wanted to hold the coin because of the volatility. Well, they redesigned everything. So nothing actually needs the XRP token, but they continue to print it. And the reason they continue to print it is that it is the primary source of revenue for the corporation known as Ripple. So Ripple Corporation is printing their own money and they are dumping it on the market on a regular basis. Now, this is why the SEC, about a month and a half ago, reached out and said, hey, this is this is a securities offering. You're not a registered securities provider. You needed to register with the SEC and various other regulatory organizations ahead of time, and you didn't. So you've been illegally selling an unregistered security to retail investors for quite a bit of time. And I imagine in the long term, there will be quite a bit of fines. And if they look and see that it's like a major intent thing, like if they knew that it was illegal and continue to do it anyways, if they had counsel advising them against it, can end up being a really serious problem. Of course, it could also be one of those things where the SEC says, okay, so you pay a $10 million fine. Here's a slap on the wrist. Register your stuff. XRP to the moon. I've seen crazier things happen, but XRP is, in my opinion, quite a dishonest project. Also not particularly interesting because I think it tops out at only about 2,000 transactions per second. And that's if everything is perfect. And we've seen the numbers. BSV, which is what I'm here to advocate for, is good for about 50,000 transactions a second, and going up. There is no scaling ceiling, according to Satoshi Nakamoto. So XRP, I also just don't find that interesting. However, people have made a lot of money on stuff that is probably not actually valuable. So it is what it is. Mr. Patrick Thompson, where can we learn more about the court case and keep up with the latest developments? I actually saw a Reddit thread that was going by. It's actually Greg Maxwell's Reddit, the RBSV subreddit. They were sharing information there. You can also register. So court cases, if you don't know, are actually public events. So you can go into the UK court system. This is a UK lawsuit, and you can see, hey, where do I click and watch on? It's probably on Zoom or something. And you can sit and watch it live. However, I would advise against it because court is not the most exciting thing in the world unless you're a journalist, which, Patrick, I know for a fact you are. So feel free, but I would just look into it. Jack Lou, this dude has 10% of the supply, way less bullish on Shua now. Jack, I will fight you physically. I will. Nah, I'm just playing. Yeah, sometimes you just get lucky and the right people. You make some backroom deals, trade a little money under the table. I paid $2.50 for 10% of the supply, and now I'm one of the richest men in the entire Shua coin economy. So it's worked out really well for me. Thank you. Owen, Twitch doesn't work in my country, Nigeria. Do you know why? Now I could guess, but I don't know. However, if you were to reach out to Twitch support, they're very responsive. I have a meeting actually scheduled with Anthony, who handles all of that kind of stuff over at Twitch. He'll be very happy to help you if he can help you. And if it's not some major overarching government oppression thing, I imagine he can let you right in. It might just be a glitch. However, if you wanted to look into the concept of a virtual private network, often called a VPN, you can probably pay about $10 a year for VPN service and make yourself look like you're in Europe or North America or somewhere else and log into Twitch anyways. So it's kind of the beauty of internet technology right there. I want to talk for a second about the Shua coin thing. For a long time, we've been talking about the need to compete with Ethereum and the tools. People argue, well, do the tools exist? Do we have, why would we do this? Do we have the liquidity? Is there an opportunity here? Yeah, like if there is no liquidity, is there even a reason to tokenize anything on BSV? I actually wrote an article today, or I wrote it yesterday, it published today, talking about how the real work is business development work. The DeFi right now, as it stands, really filters its way up to a specific set of Silicon Valley venture capitalists, which if you listen to some of the squawking around social media, VCs are the worst people in the world. Now, I don't think that that's always the case, but if you go to San Francisco and you meet the Silicon Valley VC culture, I think they're the best example of VCs being the worst people in the space, maybe in the world. But what they've done is they've created all these protocols that create an unnecessary token. And that unnecessary token becomes the money printed to fund development and the liquidity for the actual settlement that occurs between these protocols. And it's all based on the fact that Ethereum can only scale to about 15 transactions per second. Now, remember I said earlier, BSV is capable of about 50,000 transactions a second. So 50,000 per second versus 15 per second on Ethereum. So why do people develop on Ethereum? Well, the answer is nobody has a long-term scalable business plan. They're not making plans for 10 years down the road when they need to have 1 billion people using their DeFi product. In reality, they're looking at a 1 to 3 year exit scam. Now, what they want to do is pump valuations. They want to get the token price of Polkadot and synthetics and all these other things that are happening in the DeFi space. And they want to sell these coins on the open market, but they need that liquidity to do it. So they need liquidity between their little token and Ethereum, and then they need liquidity from Ethereum to US dollars so that they can make multi-billion-dollar exits over time. So that's what's really going on there. Now, if people move to BSV, all these things can scale. We can deal with 1 billion customers, maybe not on day one, but if we grow at a reasonable rate over the course of the next 6 to 18 months, I hate that number. I just said 18 months on a Bitcoin show. I'm very sorry. We can handle it. All of this stuff can happen. Liquidity can come in a way that is healthy, and then we're taking over the world. So these things exist. The tokenization exists. What we really need is the business model. If you need somebody to make you a token, talk to Josh Hensley. I imagine he could get it done for you in about an hour's worth of work. His consultation fee might be 1 Shua coin, which is $218,000 a piece, but he can do the work for you in about an hour. So all you really need to do is hire someone to make that coin. But then the real work is the business development work. You got to get people out there selling these products to businesses and individuals, and you need to actually be disrupting the space with your own work. Mr. Moon, bring up the next question. What's your prediction for BSV's price mid-year? Do you think it's going to go up a lot, or do you think it will be gradual? I'm not a price prediction guy. Sound money, which is what Bitcoin was always supposed to be, and therefore is what BSV is, needs to absorb value relative to the industry sectors that it disrupts. So if we're going to disrupt telecom, let's assume telecom is $100 billion industry. But if we're going to replace all their networking infrastructure and we absorb, let's say we absorb 50% of the telecom economy that decide to use Bitcoin instead as a communications rail, as a communications technology, we should expect to absorb 50% of their market cap. And therefore, 50% of the market cap will be transferred to Bitcoin SV, making, I don't know, what would the price be? There's a little bit of math to do there. So market cap, add $50 billion in market cap, divide by 21 million coins across the market, and that would be the price. Now, this is the conversation that nobody wants to hear because, well, who did BTC disrupt? Who did Ethereum disrupt? Well, they didn't disrupt anybody, but what they have been doing is they've been being traded on private books. You can't go audit Binance. You can't see who the market makers are. And quite frankly, it's maybe a dozen people that are doing the market making work, and they get free money. So they have Tether that just spills in at will, and then they can trade it against each other. They create the market liquidity that pushes the price up, and they can take BTC over the course of a year from $4,000 to $50,000. And then there you have it. But they didn't create any new utility. They didn't create some new business model. They didn't disrupt anybody. And I think this is actually a really good example of proof to what fair valuation should be. Now, BSV is not being traded at places like Binance, Kraken, Coinbase, Gemini. It's just not happening there. They've either been delisted or they have never been listed. And so they don't have that access to Tether's liquidity. And therefore, the price has been quite a bit more stable. It has been very, very gradually eking its way up. So there's a very clear trend. BSV was $50 about 2 years ago. And now it's about 200, or what was it today? 235, I think, at the start of the show. And it's had some spikes, but it's generally gone up very gradually, which again is relative to a little bit of speculative value, but ultimately what we are disrupting or what we are trying to disrupt. And that's a really important thing. So I don't expect it necessarily to just burst up and cause all kinds of excessive gains, unless we truly disrupt the economy that we need to disrupt, and that's what's really important there. So, next question, sir. Ooh, any plans for BSV exclusive exchanges? So this episode is actually brought to us by buybsv.com, but I know that's probably not what you're talking about. I would really love to see a Coinbase style. You set up an account, you connect your bank account, you make weekly purchases, and you can also off-ramp if you need to sell some BSV to pay the bills. So that would be really nice. As for who's doing that business development, this is one more example of where there's a giant opportunity. We keep hearing Fabric or whatever you call them, the Canadian sub company to Bayesian Group. And, I don't know. There's been some weird stuff going on at Bayesian Group anyways. Ryan X. Charles sold Money Button to Bayesian Fabric maybe 2 months ago, and then made an exit. I think it was last Friday. So sometime late last week said, hey, I'm going to go out on my own. It appears to be the company name is called Cozian. However, I don't know what product or service or anything that he's done. He's been very quiet about it, but I've heard through the grapevine a little bit that that was all part of the plan, but I'm not really sure. But Fabric is supposed to allegedly have some kind of product coming sometime soon. I'd love to use it. I would be a customer. So by all means, get to it, Fabric, or do it yourself. Go get it. Another one from Patrick Thompson. Kurt, what do you see as one of the biggest obstacles BSV faces at the moment, and how might we solve that or those problems? Well, I'm going to say it again. Redundant, Kurt. Business development. We've got the best technology stack in the game. We really do. We scale better than everybody. You could run Cardano in a 50th of the bandwidth that BSV has available right now. You could tokenize the entire Ethereum system and BTC and everything on BCH, tokenize all of it onto BSV. They can run in our virtual machine, and fees will not even approach 1 penny. So we have the tech stack figured out completely. We have absolutely no competitors in that regard. We have a bunch of people that claim that someday, you get the polka dots and some of these other things. Oh yeah, 100,000 transactions a second, no problem, as long as we figure out sharding and some of this other roadmap stuff that's coming in the next 2 to 4 years. So the tech is figured out. We also actually have quite a bit of good talent to implement some of this stuff. And this can be anybody from, let's say, the guys from Twetch, or it could be the guys from Enchain, or it could be the guys from Bayesian Group, or it can be any number of people that do the actual work here to do that implementation. But what we don't have, I've been saying this for months, we need people to connect those dots, make a little cut in the middle. Imagine putting an output to yourself in perpetuity as the salesman on this job. And you say, hey, pay me something a little less than a penny on every single transaction so nobody will see it. And that's my cut in perpetuity for me to facilitate the deal between pick your developers or token protocols of choice and connect them to big businesses. Who has a data integrity problem? Who has a transaction friction problem? Whoever those people are, they need us. They need you. Go make $1 billion being the salesman in the middle there. I think that is clearly the biggest problem we have. Joey O, thoughts on central bank in Nigeria banning all cryptocurrency? Think it's an opportunity for BSV to work along regulatory frameworks? I do, absolutely. In fact, this is the one strong point that BSV has from a cultural standpoint that everybody else does not have. everybody else is creating Anarchy Coin or Anarchy Network or Anarchy something. Well, we've spent a lot of time in the BSV community working on regulatory compliance. And so there's a huge opportunity there. As for who's going to go pursue it, you could talk to George Samuels, who was able to get this kind of conversation going over in Tuvalu, which is the island nation from whence he came. And it's going to be a great proof of concept there. I think as things become successful for the Tuvaluan people, other people, perhaps in Nigeria, but perhaps everywhere else in the universe too, will say, hey, why aren't we doing this the efficient way? Why aren't we using BSV? Why aren't we tokenizing our currency? Why aren't we uploading our problems, our data integrity problems up there onto Bitcoin SV to solve these problems? So George might be a good guy to reach out to. Ask George how to get started. If there's a real opportunity there, if there are leads to be generated, if you know somebody in Nigerian official finance, connect the dots there. There might be a business opportunity for you in there too. So absolutely go track that down. When CME lists BSV as a commodity, I have a feeling they will be among the last people. So CME actually hasn't done a whole lot in the BTC space. BTC has been traded at CME Group since 2017. As a Chicagoan, I have walked by the CME building probably 1,000 times in my life. I look at the building and wonder, hey, what's going on up in there? It's one of the only places left on earth where people are screaming with the paper sheets, and they still bid like the old days, like they did on the New York Stock Exchange back in the day. But there's not a lot of BTC volume or anything happening there anyways. I think they also do Bitcoin Cash and Ethereum futures. But the real problem is liquidity. So BSV needs more liquidity. It needs more people that are buying it on the market so that there are more people to create a market in selling them. Because you don't need BSV futures if there's not that much demand. And right now, there's not enough demand. And again, that's a problem that gets solved with business development. So that's the focus. Don't worry about CME. Don't worry about what Calvin's up to. Don't worry about what Coinbase is going to do. Go make $1 billion selling a data integrity solution or a payment friction solution to a big business. And then CME will be reaching out to us and saying, hey, where can we get a stack so we can trade futures? Joao Santos. I love those Portuguese names. He must be from Brazil. How would you envision a search engine for Metanet? Can you think of any features you would love to use? I've actually got a little secret on that front, something I've been working on. I will give you a little insight into what's going on here. Here's the thing. All data points on chain. If everything is on chain, much the same way as everything is on the internet today, you need crawlers to search for all of these different things. And it's actually a pretty trivial problem to solve from a technical standpoint, and it becomes easier over time as more data makes its way on to Bitcoin. So if we continue to go that direction, continue to use Bitcoin as a valuable commodity ledger of data, so data written to ledger becomes commodity, then it's incredibly powerful. I think one of the most interesting uses of it, look at Anne by Mr. Scatman, Lucas. Brilliant guy. He's an artificial intelligence programmer. He's very, very intelligent and thinks about problems in a very different way. And he wants every bit of data to be like a neuron in a brain, and each one of those things is at its own address hash, so they're more easily accessed. But that's not how Metanet works. So a lot of people use the word Metanet and Bitcoin as disambiguations of each other, and they're not. They're actually not synonyms. Metanet is a protocol that runs, I guess it would run inside Bitcoin, but in some ways people might call it a sort of layer 2. But Metanet is a protocol that works with Bitcoin. So data is written to Bitcoin, but Metanet is like a translation protocol. It's sort of like an operating system or a low-level operating system that runs on Bitcoin that helps solve some of those problems. So you would solve those problems a little bit differently, given that it's Metanet. But if we're just talking about Bitcoin generally, there's a lot of opportunity there. It's actually something that I've been looking into personally, because I think there should be a really, really useful browser of data, a sort of Google to Bitcoin. We'll see if I can pull it off. I don't know how good I am, but we will see. It's something I'm thinking about. Rick Howard, good afternoon. Pros and cons of banks taking real interest in BSV or crypto in general on a consumer level. The big pro would be demand. So with demand is price appreciation. If there's price appreciation, then everybody has more purchasing power. If there's more purchasing power, there's more money to hire all kinds of people to solve all kinds of problems, and then, whatever. So that's great. The cons, I don't know if there's necessarily a con. I think any cons would be business challenges, but we need more business challenges than we have right now. So it's not, I don't know if that's a con. Like, some people will lose more hair than I have, but I don't think that's necessarily a con. I think it's a good thing. We need more problems like that in the BSV conversation. Kaveh Shahidi, question, why has crypto changed from a payment method to an investment method? Are we on the right path? Man, that is a conversation right there. This could be a 3-hour show on just that topic. I think the simplest version is that people don't understand it. The white paper is crystal clear. Read the introduction to the white paper. It should take you about 35 seconds. Satoshi said that payments on the internet are too expensive. The fees are too high. The payment rails that exist on the internet are not useful in facilitating commerce on the internet. And so we need something with lower fees than the existing payment rails. So at the time, this is 2008, we'd be talking about credit cards and PayPal. Those were the only two ways you could do business on the internet. And Satoshi wanted to be cheaper to use than credit cards and PayPal. So I think it's pretty simple. Payment vector on the internet. Well, immediately, literally the first comment to Satoshi was from a guy named James Donald, who said, well, everyone would have to run their own node. Well, Satoshi laughed at him and said, oh, no, you misunderstand Bitcoin. You don't need everybody to run a node. You need, and he basically goes on to explain exactly what BSV looks like today, with James Donald arguing with him and saying, no, it won't be secure. Everybody needs to have their own blockchain. It can never scale. Or everybody needs to have their own node on the blockchain so they can validate their own transaction. It's basically the conversation that we've been debating for 12 years now, big blockers versus small blockers. So people basically got it in their heads that the thing that we need the most is a store of value that can't be touched by the state. Now, I don't want to argue that that's wrong, because in many ways that is true. And for a lot of people, and actually Satoshi even mentioned this too, that central banks debase the currency. So it's not that he didn't recognize that is a valid use of Bitcoin, but the problem that he intended to solve, and the problem that I think Satoshi intended to solve first, was a payments problem. And then if you solve the payments problem, you start to disrupt things like PayPal, and then you gain that value, that store of value utility there. But it's gone backwards. And frankly, I think a lot of people came out of like the real estate pump and dump bubbles, boiler room stuff, the .comers. You had these guys saying, what's the next thing we can pump? And Bitcoin was very, completely unregulated at first. And I think they saw it as an opportunity to just simply pump. And when they started to pump, well, then you have that opportunity to screw people. But that's when it becomes that store of value. This is your first opportunity. Sweep this with your Simply Cash wallet. It will become money instantly. Thank you, Satoshi. Thank you to freebsv.com for providing this. Your chance is over. You might want to pause and rewind. Try to sweep it. But yeah, long story short, the store value narrative works because salesmen are out there pushing the store value narrative. This is why I keep saying we need salesmen to solve data integrity problems and get out there. Shepherd Commander, that sounds like a real name. Market perception is everything now. Look at Elon and Dogecoin. Here's the beautiful thing. Elon Musk is an internet troll. He's always been an internet troll. In some ways, I actually really like Elon Musk for being an internet troll. But what we fail to realize is that if store value and pumping the price and buying coins to hodl if this is the only thing that this is good for, then we have already lost the plot. Because the value that comes from that is completely subjective. And market cap is actually almost complete BS. Market cap doesn't exist. So if you were to try to sell right now, if you were to try to sell 50,000 BTC and you needed to settle it in fiat cash right now, nobody could swallow that order. Even though there's a ton of circulating BTC allegedly on the market based on market cap. Well, there aren't that many buyers. None of it's actually real. So these numbers are pumped up, but they couldn't be settled in real time. So they need to not be settled, which is why we start seeing these weird liquidity pooled solutions provided by people like BitPay and Coinbase. Like, hey, just use this Visa, just use this MasterCard. We're going to give you these things. And then you can spend against this alleged value, but please don't actually sell your BTC. So they're creating a new bank culture that really isn't a whole lot different than the old bank culture, which is the thing that I thought we were all trying to get away from. But if you think about what's actually going on here, Elon Musk bought allegedly $1.5 billion worth of BTC. Well, the peasants rejoiced. Everything is better now. We're all rich. But what you've done is you've centralized the holding of BTC into the hands of somebody who really, really likes to mess with people. Now, we saw him do it with Doge. He pumped Doge over the weekend, and then he dumped it on everybody. I mean, look at the timing of events of when Elon Musk started talking about Doge on Twitter, and then he sold a bunch of it. He made a ton of money that he's probably going to use to fund some rocket ship going somewhere or some robot that he wants to put up your nose and control your brain. And everybody's going to continue to rejoice because the Doge army got rich. And that's so ridiculous because Doge is a worthless project. Doge hasn't had a single pull request in over 2 years, and it hasn't had any significant development in many, many more years than that. But its market cap, which again is fake, is pumped way up, way out the window. And it was paper traded on places like Robinhood by a bunch of people that don't understand the fundamentals because of somebody like Elon. Now, I don't believe that it's a problem for coins to be held by big holders. Whales don't scare me because for me, store of value is a secondary thing. This investment value of Bitcoin is a secondary issue. But for the people who only care about number go up, Elon Musk, a guy who likes to create tiers on the internet, owns a gigantic stack of BTC that he probably bought over the course of several weeks or months from market makers and miners, OTC desks. But if he decides to, he can take them to Bitfinex or Huobi or Binance or any of these places, and he can dump them. He can just market sell them into the market, and he can crash the price himself. I've said the same thing about Mike Novogratz and Barry Silbert and everybody's favorite new guy, Michael Saylor, the coolest guy in the room. But they've got this power now. He doesn't have to tell you he's going to sell it. He's going to dump on you, and then he's going to put it out in an annual report 2 months later and say, well, we bought the top, we sold it, and the price went from $50,000 to $25,000 again. But we exited, and we created a giant bear market, but everybody knew that was possible because it's obvious. So that's why I don't like this game. We need real market liquidity. We need people really using this stuff in business because that's where that's where the world changes. This is what's important. It makes it that the price floor is based on actual usefulness in the real economy, and then people can't dump on you anymore. And that's a really important thing to understand. Next question. Kurt knows how to DeFi. On-air coffee break. That's like the most unprofessional thing to do on a live stream, but I enjoyed it. And I will accept coffee company sponsorships because I'm a big coffee drinker. So reach out, bring your friends. We will tokenize every bean that leaves South America. I don't know if Kurt knows how to DeFi, but decentralizing finance, this is actually a subset of utilities that Bitcoin provides to the world. Bitcoin is decentralized finance, and don't you ever forget it. Get out there and sell something. Next question. Rod Sirloin, probably my favorite username across the internet, frankly. I'll buy a Shua coin for $5 off you. Come on, Kurt. Ooh, I mean, the percentage is pretty good, but honestly, I'd really like to pay off my yacht. So let's bid that baby up. I'm taking bids. I will do live OTC. Don Fredrickson, which DeFi product would you like to embrace BSV first? That's interesting. I think the most intriguing thing about DeFi conceptually is this notion of peer-to-peer lending. I don't always qualify for loans because I have always been self-employed. I've never really worked for anybody. So my credit history is a little bit weird. Now, banks don't really care why my income looks so bizarre. They just look at me and say, you don't really look credit worthy. And I'll explain like, well, here's my bank account, here's my income, here's these situations, but I'm just not a normal person. So it's difficult for me to get a loan for something like a car in the same way that somebody who just works a simple office job can just go pick up a Honda Accord in an afternoon. And I need to do a little bit more work to prove like, here's my income, here's why I look poor, here's why I'm not. I don't really want to pay you cash, but I guess I could, that kind of thing. Peer-to-peer lending is a really cool idea, and it's connected to peer-to-peer digital identity too. That if I could hash my credit score, my credit worthiness could be attested to without me doxing myself, and then taking out a loan from my peers. People like you, for example, would say, yeah, I'll lend Kurt $1,000 or $5,000 or whatever. We create the interest rate. All of that stuff gets put into a contract on chain. Everybody gets paid back. That's awesome. That's the kind of thing that I think DeFi is really, really cool about. It's certainly something we don't need 50 protocols and tokens all stacked on top of each other to facilitate. This is an app. Make an app, make a business, create DeFi on BSV. Build peer-to-peer lending into BSV today. If you can program and you are capable of getting a business license, do that. If you need a little bit of help, send me a DM. I can probably help you facilitate some of that too. Next question. Lord Harry, has Craig ever told you that he won't sign the Genesis block as a matter of personal principle? Also, if he did, do you think we would arrive at the place we want to be? First of all, there is no we. I don't know who you are, and I don't know if we want to go anywhere together. I'm not saying that I don't, but pitch me an offer. I am willing to sell Shua coin for $218,000, and if you were to make that purchase, I'd be willing to talk about whatever vacations we could go on with our massive gains. However, Craig and I actually have not spoken one-on-one to each other in person. See the right way to phrase this. I know Craig and Craig knows me, but our relationship is actually very cordial and professional. We email, we communicate via text. I have hosted a couple of interviews that he's been on. I've been the moderator of a debate or two that he's been on, and I've worked with Craig peripherally for quite a long time. But he's not the kind of guy like me and him aren't like texting and asking about each other's kids and that kind of stuff. It's just not the level of our relationship. I would accept, a happy birthday text or whatever if Craig wanted to send me one, but we just don't really talk like that. However, in some of our text conversations, he's mentioned, various things about what to do with the Satoshi keys, and I make cheeky responses and he'll make one back, but some of that stuff is just kind of like it's chuckles. A lot of it's like Metanet Slack stuff, so none of it is like big secrety stuff. What I do know is that I know of at least 5 people who have seen Craig sign with the Satoshi keys. These include Gavin Andreessen, John Matonis of the Bitcoin Foundation, Ian Grigg, which is the person that nobody really likes to talk about because Ian Grigg is like probably the greatest living cryptographer. He's somebody that absolutely nobody would be able to fool. In fact, Ian Grigg's work is some of the stuff that predicated the creation of Bitcoin itself. Like Ian Grigg is probably the most uncredited person for making the foundational things in Bitcoin possible. So when people say, Craig just fooled Ian Grigg, like that's outrageous. I have also met Ian Grigg. He's happy to speak at CoinGeek conference and things. So he would be the guy who I would really ask this question to. Like, Ian, why have you continued to support Craig Wright after watching him sign with the Genesis block? Do you really think he's Satoshi? He's the guy to ask because he could give you a hell of a good answer. And that's all I have to say about it. Jonathan, what are your thoughts on Teton County and Carbon County, Wyoming, putting their land records on the Flow blockchain? So I have had Flow mentioned to me 3 times in the last week, which means it's probably due for a pump because somebody's pumping it somewhere. Flow, I don't know much about, unfortunately, so I probably shouldn't comment. However, I would guess that they're not a proof of work chain, which would make it spurious as to whether that information is actually even safe, because proof of stake consensus, as we've seen many times, is easy to game, easy to take over. We saw Justin Sun take over Steemit. We saw EOS split into Proton Network and a couple other things. Proof of stake governance is a very, very unsecure thing, and I personally would not want any of my documentation on a proof of stake coin at all. It's proof of work or nothing for me. Everybody get ready. Do you have your Simply Cash wallets ready? There it is. Get that free money. I don't know how much is on there. I haven't swept to this one. I haven't checked. But there's money on this card. All right, time is up. What do we got next? Not sure. Is BSV being artificially suppressed somehow? Is it being shorted somehow? Yes, it is. It is the most shorted coin in the entire cryptosphere. It is being suppressed because I'm gonna give you a challenge here. Go to Digital Currency Group's portfolio. It's public. They tell you every single brand that they own in the cryptocurrency space. It's everyone from Lightning Labs to Blockstream to Ripple, Coinbase, Kraken, Abra, all of these apps that you hear about everywhere. They've funded most BTC devs, most of the Ethereum devs, all these foundations. All of a sudden, it looks like, this Barry Silbert guy and his friend Larry Summers, who you may recognize as a former Federal Reserve chairman, are paying for the development of almost everything in the space except Bitcoin SV, which is the most independent blockchain in the entire world. Now, people will say, wow, what about Craig and Calvin? Sure. Craig and Calvin are big contributors. However, look at everyone else, and their money filters up to one of three people. Almost all of them. I'm sure you could find something that does not go up to one of these three people, but it's Peter Thiel, Reid Hoffman, and Barry Silbert. And in all three situations, the money filters one step up further again, up to a little company called MasterCard. So you need to ask yourself, why would MasterCard be funding all of these things through this weird onion that we need to peel and paying for all these things? So is BSV being suppressed? I think absolutely, because BSV can replace everybody and everything. And the big venture capitalists know it. And as soon as BSV starts to really disrupt things, all of a sudden the very rich and powerful people don't have a whole lot of money or power anymore. And that's going to be a big problem. So we should expect this to be a very difficult war, which is why, again, you need to get out there, do the business development, and make it happen. We need you to win this war, because if we actually make them compete with us network to network rather than logo to logo or whatever, community to community, well, we're not going to win community to community, but we will win any war that is network versus network, because we have the biggest, fastest, meanest horse in the game by a very wide margin. Next question, Mr. Moon. Can BCH ever scale like BSV? Why or why not? Not in my opinion. BCH really, truly is about 99% similar to BTC. They share the same security roadmap. If Bitcoin Core creates a security patch to BTC, the BCH devs are forking in the security patches, because BCH is just a fork of BTC still. Bitcoin SV is not a fork of BCH anymore. It started as a software fork of the Bitcoin SV or the Bitcoin ABC node implementation, but it has been completely re-engineered from the ground up to be its own standalone implementation. So BCH has all kinds of limits. It's still very, very, very closely tied to Bitcoin Core, but Bitcoin SV has opened up all of these things. They've taken all of the stuff that was worked on by people like Bitcoin Unlimited and some of these other people over there, the parallelization technology and research, and we've implemented. We're the real Bitcoin, we're the real Bitcoin Cash, we're the real Bitcoin Unlimited, we're the real everything. We are the big blockers. We took all of the stuff that they are incapable of putting on network, and we made it happen. So can BCH do it? Not without probably 5 or 6 more major hard forks, which, as we know from the BCH community, they lose a big chunk of people every time. Amaury Sachet is sitting in a dev hole with 3 other people and with BCH coin, and they have finally made it that only the smart people are left in the room, and that's I think that's what's going to end up happening with Bitcoin Cash as well. Kurt can explain how short goes on cost of Tether. I'm not even sure what that question is asking, unfortunately. If we're talking about shorting, margin shorting is pretty easy. You're taking out a loan in order to sell coins at a certain price, and you suppress the price. This is being done on BSV right now. People are borrowing money, which is really easy because the tether isn't real. You can just print it out of nowhere. So you can borrow $1 billion pretty trivially, and then make it just continue to pump the sell wall on BSV, holding down the price. That's that. Stella Winston, what happened to Rate SV? It's a good question. I don't know. I didn't know the people who were managing it, and I don't know where they've gone. So let's find out. Rate SV. We got a big army. We got a lot of people watching. Figure out where Rate SV went, everybody. Bring them back. Stephen, loving the BSV project. Hate that there are none of the bigger trusted exchanges to get it. Any recommendations to buy some in the UK? I might need to defer to Mr. Moon. Oh, you're going to need to remove the question here. This is the QR code that will take you to buybsv.com. If you scan this with your phone, it will take you to buybsv. Terrible. I have screwed up the sponsorship. I'm fired now. Buybsv.com. If you scan that, it'll take you right to this place. They connect your credit card. It's very easy to use. Works just fine in the UK. If you have problems, you can reach out to tech support and they will be able to help you out. Kurt, should anyone be concerned about Hathor's parasitic mining software, of which are grabbing BSV blocks with, at times, only a single transaction? No, not in my opinion. Doesn't really matter. It's a public network, and there's not really a reason to care about empty blocks. Now, an empty block attack is a bigger problem on BTC because transactions get screwed up in their mempool, but it's because their mempool is so poorly implemented. In BSV, nodes are very, very closely connected, and mempool, just something like the merchant API, for example, allows miners to share information to each other without necessarily broadcasting the transaction to the public mempool. So it hits the mempool at some point, but then they're sharing it over private networks as well. So there's a couple layers there that allow them to do instant transactions. This is what people call zero confirmation transactions. So the user experience, totally fine. The empty blocks don't matter. There's not really anything to do with it. They're just mining for the block reward. And given the fact that you haven't gone out there to do that business development and make terabyte blocks, well, the block reward is the single juiciest part of mining BSV right now. We need to get our block size above 2 gigabytes. If we can get it above 2 gigabytes, then there's more money in mining for transactions than there is for mining for the subsidy. And at that point, miners start switching over, and people like Hathor just lose money by not processing transactions. So we need to get there. Kurt, if you could get someone from the industry in the octagon, who would it be and why? That's actually... So for those who don't know, I'm an MMA coach. I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitor. My other passion after Bitcoin is definitely fighting. I love mixed martial arts. I'd be very happy. Actually, I spoke to Roger Ver privately a couple of weeks ago, and he said, hey, man, when do we get to train together? So despite our differences and despite all the other stuff floating out there, Roger is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt, and I would love to fight him, frankly, but not in a malicious way. For me, I'm very, very capable of separating my business stuff from my personal stuff, and truly, enemies become friends when you hit the mats. So I think it's a healthy thing for everybody. So next one. Kurt, seems like tokens are finally happening on BSV. There seems to be a bunch of different protocol implementations. Do you think that will slow down adoption? Proud holder of Shua token. One of the richest men in the world here. Thank you, David. Just remember, do not sell it for less than $218,000. That is the fair market value of Shua coin. There's only 100 of them in existence. I think it can be a problem. There's a lot of confusion, actually, about tokenization protocols and smart contracts and how they interact with each other and how they should be interacting on chain. Right now, we probably have something like a dozen different protocols, and I don't think that that's a good thing, because people that develop in all these different directions are probably going to just re-engineer and change that up in another couple of years when adoption issues start to happen. There's also kind of an issue with the op push TX aspect of things, where it has a similar scalability problem to running full nodes and stuff like that, where you need to check every transaction back to the Genesis block. Some of these things are being worked on, but there's a bit of an infrastructural investment that needs to happen to make each of these different token protocols actually scalable. So when we have 12 different implementations of tokenization, then that's 12 different sets of different infrastructure that need to be maintained, and that's not the most efficient way to manage an economy. However, whoever wins wins. So whether it's Bitcoin Computer or Run or Elas Digital tokenized, STAS tokens, what's the one that Matterpool did, the super asset token, there's all kinds of stuff there. May the best token win. Get out there and kick ass. That's who wins it. Who gets the most business the fastest? Rico Rojo is looking for an interview with someone from BSV. Would you be willing? I am willing to go on anybody's podcast. In fact, let's crowdsource this right now. If you can get me onto anybody's podcast to talk about Bitcoin, I will be their Bitcoin guest. I will answer any question. I will go on anybody's show. I don't care about the topics. I will field questions. If the questions are awful, I will deflect them, but I will attend the show. So go out there, get me interviews. I would love to do it. How do you acquire Shua token? Well, there's a Twetch OTC desk. Here's the thing. You can actually buy one directly from me for $218,000. You can send to my Handcash wallet, which is Kurt. I will gladly transfer you my one of my Shua tokens for $218,000. However, reach out to Joshua Hensley. I don't know what he'd be willing to sell them to you for, but if he undercuts me in the market, I will harm him. Next question. Do we need better marketing? Again, people keep saying we. So I don't know you, Veto Pod. I may like you very much if we were to have a drink together or go have some coffee or hit the jiu-jitsu match or mats. But do we need better marketing? Does TCP/IP need better marketing? Does the internet need better marketing? No, they do not. And here's why. People want things over the internet. They want to subscribe to Netflix or watch YouTube videos or spend their hard-earned money on whatever else there is on the internet. They want the content. They want the business content that's on the internet. Companies market. Start a company, market that company. BSV doesn't need marketing. We're not trying to pump the price. We are trying to solve problems of transaction friction and data integrity. So if you have a business that can benefit from that, market that business. Next question. We're entering like the last 2 minutes here. I can't even believe it's almost been an hour. Danny DeClaire, I've heard a lot about BSV or how BSV will help facilitate growth of the gig economy. Can you explain how that can happen and what problems BSV solves in this space? First of all, sending micropayments to each other. Rideshare, for example. Can I pay you $10 to give me a ride somewhere? Maybe we don't transact in the same currency. Maybe I'm an American in France and I don't have euros, but I do have BSV. So I can pay you that. We can tokenize. If there was a tokenized bridge between different kinds of currencies, I could pay you in any money that you want to receive using any money that I have, and Bitcoin could be that bridge. But the gig economy can mean a lot of things too. This very typically people think the Uber of, and that's a good example, but there's also a bunch of freelance opportunities. There's fundraising opportunities. There's a number of apps out there. If any of these apps want to sponsor the show, we are accepting advertisers as well. But you can raise money via any number of apps. You can participate in the gig economy. Graphic design is another great one. Copywriting. You can write somebody's white paper if they want to create another token protocol. So there's all kinds of things to do in the gig economy. Just accept BSV. All you need to do is set up a BSV wallet, which takes literally 30 seconds. And you could even accept Shua coin. You want to buy my house? We can make a Shua coin trade for $218,000. And we've entered the gig economy on the show. Craig Hansen, yo, Kurt, my thought is identifying a starting point for business and defining the niche market to target first is the key. What do you think? Absolutely. I mean, you need to find people that have a payment transaction or a payment friction problem or a data integrity problem. I think it's probably the 10th time I've said this on the show, and I don't mean to be, I'm not insulted by it or anything, but people need to really, really hear that because, oh, there it is. Boom. Get that money. People really need to hear this because if somebody is having an issue sending money because of any limitation. It can be a technical limitation. It can be a legal limitation. It can be a cross-border settlement limitation. There's all kinds of different things that can be limiting you from making valuable payments. BSV solves all those things. That is a killer niche right there. You could be competing right now and build a competitor to MoneyGram or to Western Union. Build the company. I mean, it's not trivial to build. It's a lot of work, but that's a niche. That's something that needs to be done. And the other one is data integrity. Is people's data, is people's data trapped somewhere? Is there money to be made by liberating it or helping secure it, making it hack proof? These are big business opportunities. Go get them. Would you mind explaining Zokin? MZ got excited, so it must be something big lurking there. Zokin is a little bit technical. Not that I'm not technical. I just don't know that it's a great thing to describe on podcast. Essentially, it's a new node implementation that takes some ideas from the Electrum server model, combines them with some other creative ideas that other people came up with, assuming Bitcoin doesn't scale, and then applying them to a BSV node implementation for mining. Now, I've seen some numbers saying that 1 million transactions per second is possible, and that may be, but we don't know until we see it. What I do know is that the guys from Unbounded Capital, guys that are personal friends of mine, actually, Dave Mullenmuir, Jackson Lasky, Zach Resnick, and those other guys are really good guys. They're people I talk to socially. They're people that are doing a lot of good work in the space. Invested in creating their own mining operation at some level, but I guess we'll see. I haven't seen any hard numbers yet. Kurt, do you think anything will happen with Tether versus the SEC? I do eventually, but I don't know when. The government is slow, and but when the hammer drops, it drops hard. Got another one? I want to wrap up here. Let's make this like the 2 or 3 minute warning here, and then we'll wrap up in a few minutes. Bill Hofford. Bill is, I've actually traveled the world with Bill. So Bill, thank you for watching. I'm a big fan of Bill's, believe it or not. So why is BCH even around? Roger Ver is a founding partner at places like Binance, Coinbase, Kraken, BitPay, Ripple, Purse.io, and a number of other things. Roger Ver is a very, very wealthy man with a lot of very close connections. He probably has some connections to the people that are doing the market making across some of these exchanges too. And like I said, if the money's free, if Tether is free to print, it's not hard to pump things around. But BCH, I mean, the roadmap tops out at just barely 30 times BTC's roadmap. And I haven't seen any indication that they can be more than that. So anybody that's investing in BCH as a payments technology, I don't love it. There's a big limitation coming, and the more people invest in it for actual long-term business use, they're going to end up switching someday. It's really it's about holding our breath, frankly, as far as BCH goes. But they have no superlatives except for settlement liquidity. It's the only thing they beat BSV on, and BSV is exponentially more useful in every technical regard other than settlement liquidity. Is the electricity consumption really a problem in Bitcoin mining? The question. People bring this up all the time. People have brought this up with Elon and stuff too. If you are just hashing in order to secure money that is not creating value or disrupting other electricity, then it's a huge drain on everything that matters. I mean, our planet matters. The ecological impact is not good for just hashing on something that disrupts nothing. However, in BSV, if we can disrupt all of these industries, if we can basically shut down the centralized processing of all these things and make them exponentially more efficient, well, then that's a great thing. Then we are creating a net reduction in total power usage. And the only way to actually do that in a way that is valuable is to make a profit motive to be more efficient. And Bitcoin gives us that. There is a profit motive to building a node or building these systems that are efficient. And so Bitcoin can actually solve a power consumption issue as long as we're using it to actually disrupt the real economy. So I think that's a very important thing. Big blockers are more aggressive and more eco-friendly than the small blockers. So tell your friends. How did BCH veto the majority hash power vote during the BSV split? Actually, this is very simple. There was no vote. They cheated coming right into the hash war. They colluded with all the exchanges and said, here's this software. Nothing the BSV people can do. It doesn't matter if they bring in all of the hash power on Earth. They can't reorganize our blocks because we're all just agreeing in a handshake deal called checkpoints to just never allow a BSV node to outrun an ABC node. And so that war was lost because there was giant subterfuge going right into it. So that was that. I would love to see Unbounded Capital get into the mining space. They're working on it. As far as I'm aware, they're working hard on it too. So we should see Unbounded Capital in the space maybe this year. I don't know. I haven't gotten an update, but they made the announcement at CoinGeek London or CoinGeek New York rather. So just a few months ago, but I believe it's coming. They're working hard on it and they're smart guys too. How big do you think Tal's stock could be in 10 years? I don't know what their stock supply is or anything, so that's not a question I'm prepared to answer. But I think Tal is going to be huge in the data economy of the future. So I think it's great. I'm bullish on Tal, but I'm not in the price prediction business. Paolo, what do you think about Tether? Probably a manipulated market. How's this influence on BSV? It's huge. The money's free. You can print Tether out of nowhere. You can use it to short BSV in perpetuity. So I think that's pretty easy. You can also use it. So if you're a margin trader, you can hold as much Tether as you want, and you can short the BSV BTC pair as well, holding it down, meaning that anybody that shows up to buy, you're selling them with a loan that you can repay and money that you print out of nowhere. So who couldn't keep that up forever? I think it's a major factor in the price action on BSV. No one knows about BSV. Do you think SAP knows about BSV? I don't know. Actually, SAP, I want to say it was Unisat has a relationship at SAP. All right, I'm getting the thumbs up from Alex, the producer. Yeah, no, they have a relationship there. So SAP does indeed know about BSV. I'm going to wrap it up, everybody. If anybody wants to buy any of my Shua coin, they're $218,000 a piece. I'm willing to accept payment in BSV or solid gold bars, but only if we can melt them down in front of each other. I want to thank our sponsors, Satoshi, freebsv.com, buybsv.com. Take a look at Shua coin, tokenize everything, do it on BSV because it is super cheap to do, and you can raise literally billions of dollars overnight only on BSV. There's no perceptible fee in doing it. I want to thank everybody, really. I want to thank CoinGeek. I want to thank my lovely producer, Alex Moon, for helping me out here. I want to thank Josh for creating the Shua coin and liberating us all from the shackles of the fiat economy. All hail Shua. I also want to thank Calvin for allowing this giant company to happen. CoinGeek wouldn't be possible without Calvin making it happen. It is my goal to thank him with my work. So that's what I'm here to do. But really, thank you everybody out there in the BSV community. Again, if you want to get me on other podcasts, other things, crowdsource it. Get out there, push me on stuff. I'll go anywhere. I'll debate anybody. I'll do anything as long as it's valuable. I won't waste my time with anything super piddly. But even small shows, I'll hop on a small podcast. No big deal. If it's what the audience wants, I am here to deliver. But please tell your friends. I am here every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's Chicago time. And bring your questions, comments, blessings, cursings, grapes, or gropes, and I will answer them every Tuesday, my afternoon. And thank you, everybody. And see you next time.